Phil Huff, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Glad to be here, Mateo. Great to see you again.
We've known each other for a while now, Phil. We both worked at Altisource, a company working in default asset management and origination and many other aspects of the real estate industry. And you have an amazing career. You were a mentor to me while we were working at Altisource, and you still are. We get together from time to time, and you give me so much and so great advice. Anything related to management, to technology, to real estate. But I really want to talk today about your story in the real estate industry, your story with technology, with startups, with embracing technology to move companies forward. And I really want to start from the beginning, right? When and how did you start working in the real estate industry? Tell us a little bit about your story, Phil.
Sure, happy to. I started in the real estate industry back in 1997, actually. So I started my career in software engineering, software development, and worked in the engineering space around software database in the early 90s and leading up to when we actually started eLinks, our first company back in, 1996. Um, so it was really an accident, to be honest with you. I had accepted a promotion to go to Milwaukee and work for the Miller Brewing Company, Philip Morris, and software engineering, project management, and leading some projects there at breweries throughout the United States. And two other gentlemen in the real estate settlement industry, the title industry, approached me about starting a company that they wanted to start, and it was similar to something I wanted to do with what's now known as SaaS. So yeah, we started eLinks back in 1996 actually, and that was my first step into the real estate technology space. We built back then. We built an EDI and moved data back and forth between lenders and settlement companies, and it grew into a much bigger concern content management platform that we built called eLinks. And we were very fortunate. We raised money internally and externally. Friends and family, some private investors put money in, and we raised about $3 million to get that company off the ground. And we're very, very fortunate to meet some of my future mentors in life. And still, they're my mentors today. I still talk to them pretty regularly, actually. And we grew that company through 2005 and sold it to a private equity fund, and then exited a year later, and sold that company to merge that company with another company we bought, and then fast forward another 10 years and sold that company to Black Knight. So that was my first really foray into everything from mergers and acquisitions to private equity and everything in between. So that was my foray into the real estate industry. And I really stayed involved in real estate technology for the last 25, 27 years of my career in one form or another. After eLinks, we did a short stint. I did a short stint with a private equity fund in Cincinnati, Ohio, worked as an EIR for a while, and then was recruited to go out to California and run Platinum Data and grow that company with the employees and the team that was on board. We grew that and then sold that to, it's now involved with CoreLogic. Two exits, eLinks to Black Knight and Platinum to CoreLogic. And then I've stayed involved. Seems like I've been looking for the next eLinks or Platinum Data for the last 6 or 8 years of my life. So we've stayed in the industry. You and I spent time together at Altisource. Fun times we had there for several years. And then most recently, the last few years, I've tried to stay involved with smaller mezzanine or turnaround type opportunities, which led me to Detroit, where I am today, and wrapped up that engagement at the end of 2023. So just starting a new venture here in Detroit, working out some office space and kind of back into startup mode.
What a story. Two exits, a lot of big companies, exit involving, some of the biggest companies in the real estate and investment industry in the US. And it all started kind of as an accident, right? It wasn't a decision. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced and you overcome over the years?
Oh gosh, the biggest challenge. Yeah, you're right. I have been very fortunate to be surrounded by great people and investors and mentors. But I think the biggest challenge I had early on was one of knowledge. It was not knowing really I wish I'd have known more when I was, in my late 20s, early 30s, running a company, growing a company, and trying to raise money and understanding what the next steps were. I wish I'd had it all to do over again. I guess we all do in one phase or another, but wish I had it all to do over again and know now what I didn't know then. But yeah, it's always a challenge in unknown territories, and I think the key to that is surrounding yourself with people you can trust. And it's always been a key component of my success, and that is being around people that I draw energy from and give energy to and trust. And I think once you build that trust, you can accomplish a lot, regardless of what the situation is. We were in some very challenging times with E-Links back in the 90s, trying to get that off the ground. And I look back, I just talked yesterday to a gentleman who played an instrumental role for me back then, a guy named Dennis Orner, and he and I were talking about some of the challenges we had back then. They were unbelievably oppressive, and we thought we wouldn't get around them. But if you work with people that you trust and feel good about, you can make your way through anything. That was probably the biggest challenge: fear of the unknown, actually not knowing things. I think starting a company when you're young is probably the best time to do it because you don't know what to be afraid of. So you have no fear going into those things.
You got me thinking, right? Because I worked for companies for most of my adult life. I'm now an entrepreneur, and fear of the unknown is certainly something I battle with today, right? I also feel like there's so much that you learn and then you can apply. I guess we also learn from that, from the unknown that is coming towards our way. And I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of scary when you are facing a challenge and you don't know how you're going to, survive that challenge, right? And sometimes experience will give you that knowledge that hey, I've lived through this, I know how to go through this, and I know what's on the other side. Is that what's on your mind, like some of the biggest challenges that seemed like impossible at that time, but now with everything that you could have moved a few pieces and survived that earlier, faster, and without all of the headaches that you had? Is that what you mean?
Well, I think certainly that fear of the unknown is much less when you're a little older and you've got a few gray hairs. What can be on the other side. It's not all that scary. You're just trying to take in all the information to make the best decision you can. And you also know that you're probably not going to make the right decision many times, but you do it anyway because you have the baseline of data to recover and to be able to make those changes to the business and go in new directions. So that fear is much less. It's not crippling. It's more of a healthy fear. And I think that's what everyone is trying to do. Look, today, the technology landscape is more active, arguably, than it was even 30 years ago when I was coming into this and not sure whether to trust the internet or not. There's a lot of things going on today that level the playing field for industry participants, lenders, service providers, servicers. Everyone in the industry is beginning to embrace technology, and it's not only available to the few elites. It's not only available to large companies. It's available to everyone. So I think technology going forward is going to level the playing field in many ways. I tend to have a bit of a different opinion than some in the industry. I don't think that it's going to be this huge differentiator. I think it's going to be it's going to have a leveling effect. So many participants in the industry will be able to use generative AI and go out and find the tools necessary to change their business, transform their business. One of the products that we provide at Morning View Advisors is a workflow automation tool that's available to anyone through the internet. So it's not a matter of having specialists or programmers or engineers inside your organization that can reduce costs through automation. It's available to everyone. So, but yeah, I think the healthy fear is much better than the crippling fear that you have early on in your career.
Indeed. So technology is going to level the playing field. And so if technology that is not the differentiator, what do you think will be the differentiator going forward? Is it people? Is it how we manage relationships? Is it the professionalism, or what will, if you had to tell the audience what you think is going to make really a difference as businesses provide services or products, where do you think that is?
Well, I think the technology piece of it is a given, right? I mean, the Generation Y, the millennials, the folks that have grown up with technology have different expectations. They expect for technology to be a given, for there to be a way for them to check balances online and use their phone to look up a property, and so all that. Yeah, I think once you have that baseline, you've established the criterion for your entire market to come in and access your products and services. But I think the next level is going, the differentiator will actually be the same it has been throughout the millennia, and that's service, right? Providing your customers with the level of service that they're after, regardless what that means, whether it means being able to use Plaid to make payments online or being able to pick up the phone and call someone and contact them. I think that I've seen more and more outcry in the industry from folks who are unable to get a human on the phone than I have those who are unable to access the right technology they want to use. So I think the worm is going to turn a bit, and it's going to be you're going to see people recognized for their level of service and the attention to detail that they provide, and those quality measures are going to be more than just Google rankings online. They're going to be based on performance indicators that companies are being held accountable for, OKRs that are public facing, the ability to get in touch with people you need when they need them. So I think it's going to come back around, and we're going to see a rejuvenation of people's demand for customer service, being able to get what they need when they need it. And I think you're seeing some of that in the servicing industry today, right? It's not acceptable just to not be able to get in touch with your service provider. People want availability online to check their balances and find out how much they owe on their loan and what a payoff would look like. And so the technology is going to play a role, but I think level of service is going to play a role as well. I know generative AI and machine learning and the chat technology that's coming into the foray is and should play an active role in access to information. But I think there always has to be that access to the individual and the person. Technology should be an enhancer and a saver, if you will, but not a replacement for the human element. So I think the human element will rejuvenate itself in the late 2020s, and we'll see a rebound of people demanding high customer service.
And do you think, let me introduce this question the right way. During the pandemic, it was kind of soft skills. I don't know if soft skills took a hit or not, but it seemed like it was all about just being able to get the technology or developers, etc., and just the human touch. Kind of, everyone thought that, hey, retail, there will not be any retail anymore. You're just going to order everything online. You're not going to talk to people, etc., etc. And like you said, there's a lot of demand right now to go back to that human interaction and to get the quality human interaction, right? So I agree with you in that there is a return into getting quality human interaction in a different way that we were getting, that we were getting used to get. But do you think, and this is tough to answer question, but from an educational perspective, do you think we're getting ready for that? Do you think that younger generations getting into the labor market understand the importance of that interaction, the quality of service, the attention to detail, the thoroughness of the service, right? The value added? Do you think there's awareness both from younger generations and from the educational system in that is going to be so prevalent when everyone is talking about technology, AI, automation, etc., etc., etc.?
Well, first off, I think we have to be careful as a society to stop using terms like never and always and everything and nothing. These absolutes are endpoints that don't necessarily exist in the real world. Secondly, I think that even the younger generation, as you call them, are folks that understand and also desire the need for human interaction at times. I think that younger generations have grown up with technology in their thumbs as being one of their primary sources for communication. But I think they'll be the first to tell you that there are always times where you want that personal interaction for certain transactions. So I think a lot of what we do will move to an electronic platform. The real estate industry is one prime example of that. Look, technology played a role in everything from making reservations on a plane when you're traveling somewhere, to a train, to a lot of that key punching and the interaction that occurred went away from a customer service agent you were talking to and to your own fingertips, right, on your keyboard or on your phone. So the industry has changed because of technology, and a lot of that cost has been borne by people typing into a keyboard. That's what's caused the lack of human interaction. However, people still want that human interaction from time to time. When they're getting on that plane, they're still going to talk to someone. So I think there's an expectation that the quality of interaction should be much higher when it does exist, because we, the consumer, have borne the brunt of the information exchange or the key punching or the entering the data into your system. So we want that human interaction to be top notch when we do have it. And I think that younger generations and older generations alike are look, we're tired of the especially here in the United States. It's not necessarily so in some other countries, but here in the United States, we're tired of the people that are sick and tired of doing their job. And I think those people are looking for to be treated like a human and an individual when it comes to interacting with their employer and the folks that they work with. So I think it all boils down to a yearning for human interaction in some way, shape, or form. Not all the time, not everything, not everywhere, but when it's appropriate. And I think the education system is a good example that you bring up also. And I think the pandemic introduced the option of teaching remotely, which I think, quite honestly, was probably a disservice to our young people in this country, because I don't think it served them well. I think it left a generation or two there that are fraught with big gaps in their education. I think we'll overcome that over time, but I think that we should probably focus on learning from what happened during the pandemic. It's not all about shutting down the world. It's about dealing more effectively with the hand that we've been given.
The human touch will exist less, but when it happens, we want it to be top notch. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I love that phrase. You talked a little bit about the role that technology is playing in real estate. There was always this expectation that everything was going to happen online, from finding a home to visiting the home virtually, to buying the home, to closing, to getting the loan to buy the home, to everything, right? So that was kind of the PropTech promise. Do you think that PropTech is delivering on that promise? Yes, no, why?
Sure. Yeah, I do believe it's delivering on much of that promise. Look, it all started with e-sign back in 2001 when we were allowing transactions to occur online. That's been going on for 20 plus years now. Most of the information that a home buyer needs to go out and look for a home is available online. 90% of all home buying transactions start online. I believe that the NAR and the real estate industry was a bit slow to adjust pricing in some respects. And I think that that's catching up now, and we'll see some changes, not all encompassing like some people believe, but not nothing also, as some people believe, based on the lawsuits that have been partially settled recently. Right. I think you'll see a bifurcation on some of those costs. Will I see real estate agents go away? Of course not. There's no words like always and never, I think, to be used in this industry. But I think technology has delivered a great deal. If you look at 20 years ago, someone searching for a home and what it looks like today, it involves pajamas and keyboards. Back then it was getting in a car with a real estate agent, driving around looking at properties. Technology has delivered a great deal. Is it perfect yet? No, of course not. But tremendous strides have been made, and tremendous strides will continue to be made. You see them made every day, looking at homes online and seeing augmented stagings occurring. You didn't see that 2-3 years ago. Looking online and seeing the ability to compare and contrast internals and externals and make market comparisons. You didn't see that online 5 years ago. You're seeing a lot of these things change, and I think the industry, albeit somewhat slow to change and make changes to pricing models and rev shares and commissions, a bit slow for those things to change as well. But there's absolutely still a place for a real estate agent in these transactions. I just think that the division of labor between the buy side and the sell side may change a bit as time goes forward, which it should, right? That pricing model has been stale for many years now, and I think everyone's expected it sooner than it's actually happened. And I think that's a realistic thing to change in this industry. So good to see it.
So you've been in the real estate industry for a while. When Sunday comes along and you're thinking about the week, what do you like most about this industry, and what gets you motivated as you continue to work in the real estate industry?
Well, you pointed out one thing, and that's the constant change. I think that staying aware of what's going on in the industry is very important for all industry players right now. And if you're starting a company and growing a company in this industry, staying aware of what's happening, keeping your finger on the pulse is extremely important, probably more so than ever, right? Information is so available to all of us that not staying aware of what's going on and adjusting to those changes will be paramount to not growing your company. So you have to plan to stay abreast of information. I think it's also exciting to me that the advent of generative AI and the growth of machine learning, heck, even quantum computing, and some of the things that are going on with IBM and Google and Microsoft and others, when that becomes a reality here in a few years, that will forever change the way we look at properties and the potentials that can exist in those properties, and the experience that you can have when you get quantum computing to a place where it's standard in the industry. You'll literally be able to put on a pair of goggles and walk through a property you've never been in before, and it'll be just like being there. So I think those are exciting changes for our industry, and I think the growth that I see coming in the next 20 years, 10 to 20 years, is going to be 100 times more interesting than what you've seen so far for the last 25 years with the advent of the internet and online services with SaaS and viewing properties online. It's going to take a leap, paramount leap in the next 5 to 10 years. That gets me excited. It keeps me excited about being in this industry. And I want to be a part of that. And I will continue to be a part of that in what we're doing here at Morning View Advisors and the next venture that we're working on. So it remains to be a very exciting industry for me. And I know you as well and others in the industry. It remains very, very exciting for all of us.
Do you think the next changes, so there's a lot of computing power, and then there's a lot of UI, UX, right? The way that we interact with technology. We are very used to keyboards, to the screen, to the phone, but now we're getting, VR glasses that are next level, AR glasses that are next level. Like, one of our customers has AR glasses. You go inside the house and you can see the pipes, and you can see, like, you can see stuff that you cannot really see, but it overlays it on top of, what reality that you are seeing. Quantum computing is going like crazy. And I don't know if you read it, but Neuralink from Musk inserted a chip in it. They are doing like a human trial with a chip that changes
Right.
the UI, and they just need to think to operate the phone, right?
Yeah.
Any reactions to that? How do you feel about how far that user interface will change in the future?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's technologies to be aware of because they're coming this year. There's cutting edge technologies that'll be here in the next few years. And then there's an old term called bleeding edge technologies, which is, you probably don't want to quite go that far, but it's good to stay aware of them and know where we're taking technology. But yeah, I read the same article that Elon Musk put out about the computer chip. And it's amazing. It's astounding. They now have technology where they can keep brains alive from animals for days at a time, at least hours at a time, many hours at a time, without a body attached to them. So yeah, there's this sci-fi side of things that takes you in a direction that you don't really know. That's where the market will take it. but being aware that those things are happening is exciting and fun. And I'm the biggest duck in the puddle when it comes to staying abreast of those things and keeping up to date on what's happening for everything from Bitcoin to distributed ledgers to the things that Neuralink are doing, space travel. All those things are amazing to me. But I think you have to keep both feet on the ground too and focus on the technologies that can change the market that we're operating in today. It's always interesting to dream about what could happen in the future. And I love those articles just as much as you or the next guy. But I enjoy keeping both feet on the ground and deploying technologies that make a difference for the consumer today. And I think that's where we should spend most of our time.
Is that a big part of being a successful entrepreneur? Having your feet on the ground, having a view on the future, but your feet on the ground and a pragmatic view of what the market wants?
Absolutely. And that last statement about what the market wants is the most important piece, right? What the consumer wants. And I think having your hand on the pulse, your fingers on the pulse of the consumer is the most important part of that paradigm. And it's the part that I've tried to focus on most of my career. And that's why that human touch, that human element will never go away. I don't believe. I think, being able to look someone in the eye and understand that they have your best interest in mind when that most important transaction in your life occurs, that's really, really important.
Which takes me back to something you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. And you were saying, one of the challenges that I faced when I was growing in my career, we talked about the fear of the unknown, but then you talked about something very important, which is trust, and which is finding people and surrounding yourself with people that you trust, right? You have come a long way. Do you think you have gotten better in identifying those people? And what can you tell me about how do you realize, how do you make sure you can trust someone? How is that built?
I've spent a lot of time with this recently, and over my career, I've made mistakes like the best of us, trusting the wrong people and feeling comfortable with the wrong people. And I probably more than others have trusted people when I shouldn't. I hear that regularly from my wife. But I think the most important thing that you have to do, having stubbed my toe as many times as I have, is to ask the person and have that conversation. Don't be afraid to ask that question. It's probably the most important question that you can have with someone. Over the last year of my life, I've asked that question to a very small number of people, and the answer you get will tell you whether you should trust that person or not. And I think that throughout my career, I can tell you today, people that I've hired throughout my career, throughout the 30 years of my career, I've hired and worked with many, many, many people. And there are probably a dozen to 15 that still actively stay in touch with me, reach out to me, call me, text me. And that's a result of that trust that we built early on in our relationship. And a true trusted relationship remains forever. So that's asking the question, having the conversation is probably the most important thing that you can do there. And don't be afraid to have that conversation. It's an important aspect to any relationship you have.
Completely agree. In my personal experience, it goes both ways, right? So it's hard, and it's hard when you get let down. It's hard to open up, right? But at the same time, if you don't open up, then it's very hard to build a new relationship and to build trust on a new relationship, right?
That's right.
And so there's a lot of vulnerability that comes with trusting, right? And a lot of energy and a lot of it's taxing from an emotional perspective. But I agree with you in that it's key. It's if you don't have trust, then you cannot move forward, especially as an entrepreneur. I have a partner right now, and I think trust is the most important thing that we have. And it doesn't mean agreement, right? It doesn't mean getting along well all the time. Sometimes we can have big disagreements. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's about trusting that the other person wants something that is beneficial for the both or for the group, right? and knowing that each one is trying to do their best, however that best looks like, right?
Exactly.
Which is
Yeah.
probably going to be different. And I think that's the gist of it, right? It's not confusing trust with like, okay, we agree, on everything. No, 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 no. Even when you're like with your wife, right? I mean, I trust my wife. I don't agree, many times I don't agree with her. I know where she's coming from. I know that I screw up many, 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 many times, right? So I let myself be vulnerable with that. Um, but yeah, trust is super hard. I love that, it's still a great number of people that, 12 to 15 people that you all of, after all of these years, you stay in touch and they are part of a very close,
Small
tight knit.
elite group. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's important.
Yep.
And not a lot of people
Absolutely.
can say that. Not a lot of people can say that they have that many, you know, people that they really trust and that they can call up anytime and just, throw an idea, think about something, get advice, or vice versa. Right.
Right.
Um,
Yep. Expose themselves. Absolutely. But one more part of that, Mateo, is, and this might, I hope, at the risk of contradicting what I just said, I think it's important for the big decisions in your life, that you trust but verify, right? I mean,
yeah.
just because you trust your business partner doesn't mean that you would enter into multi-million-dollar relationship with him or her without an agreement. If we trust each other, then we should be willing to put this in some sort of agreement, some sort of written agreement. And many times, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, completely. Clear rules and memory can fail all of us. And I
Yep,
say this
exactly.
as an attorney. Definitely put
Yes,
things in writing. It helps people forget stuff. It's not that there might be intentions or not, but people tend to forget stuff. And yeah, there
absolutely.
needs to be there there needs and then I go back and change a little bit what I said. There needs to be an agreement on the fundamental things, right? There needs to, with my
Yep,
wife, there needs to be an agreement that we want this, that we want this couple, we want this family, and we want to stay together, and we want the best, for the other person,
sure. Yeah,
my
yeah,
partner,
absolutely.
that we want this company, that we both share a view of where we are going, right? The focus, the growth, the effort that we're going to put in. So I completely agree with you. And like you said, you should be asking those questions. I think it's great advice for everyone listening right now. If you're hesitating on asking the questions, the important questions, don't you're just wasting time, wasting precious time. And if you have a doubt, you just you need to put that on top of the table and have that conversation.
And I think the biggest opportunity I see for youth in our industry today is their willingness to reach out and develop that trusted relationship and use it to learn from someone who has been in their shoes before. There's this sense of bravado or pride or something that exists in certain individuals that gives them a fear to reach out and try to learn from others. They want to learn it themselves, do it themselves the way their forefathers did, or the way their grandfather did, or their dad did, or the people they admire did. And I think there's so much time to be saved in getting a mentor in life. And I've got a handful of people that I work with in that respect, and they're not afraid to ask me anything. And I think that I would encourage everyone to do the same. Find someone that you have that trusted relationship with and learn from them. One of my favorite things has always been to hang out with people that are much older than I am and not be afraid to ask them questions. And I think there's so much to be learned in that. So,
Technology might change, a lot of things change, but human nature doesn't change. And so because human nature doesn't change, the stuff that older people went through, history repeats itself, right? And we
right.
constantly forget that. We constantly forget it. But there's a lot of things that don't change, and like you said, those gray hair, they come with a lot of wisdom.
Yeah. And Reddit and Facebook and LinkedIn and all that can change some of that, but not all of that. Sitting down and having a cup of coffee or a beer with someone is different than posting a question on Reddit and reading the results for the next 3 days. So yeah, a lot to be said for that. Going back to the human interaction piece of things.
Very good. So that will be your biggest advice for someone who wants to get into the industry, get a mentor, learn from them, and have real human interactions.
Yep. Not be afraid to ask questions.
Very good. Phil.
Questions are not a weakness.
No. 100% in agreement. One last question to you. What do you do when you're not working? How do you relax?
Well, I read. My Kindle is worn out on one side from the amount of books I've read on that. I enjoy still paper books, believe it or not, from time to time as well. Like you, I find escape in my music. So playing my guitar and singing and closing the door so no one else can hear me, or finding some office space like this where no one else can hear me. I like that. I even do some recording from time to time like you do. I enjoy photography as well. I do a lot of photography and edit a lot of pictures, and it's amazing when you talk about the use of technology. I think technology is going to eliminate the world of photographers at some point in time. Once you get these AI engines out of Photoshop and onto the actual camera themselves, there won't be a need for photo editing anymore. But yeah, photography, music, spending time with my wife, drinking wine. We love to travel as well. So those are the things that I enjoy.
I think I love photography. My father is super big on photography, and he's super big on old school lenses. Some of his cameras don't even have like the digital view. So it's like going back old school, and you don't know how the picture is going to come up, right? Until you develop the film, right? He develops the film himself many times. And I think there's in this time that we live where we get bombarded with so many different signals from everywhere, I think for old school photography, it's an amazing way to find mindfulness, to stay in the present and to enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? You're walking through the streets. One thing I inherited from my father, and I love it. You're walking through the street, and all of a sudden, I don't know. Like I'm just in San Francisco drinking my coffee downtown, and all of a sudden I see this huge albatross or like a huge bird, right, on top of a building in front of me. And I don't have a camera. I just have my cell phone, but I know that with my cell phone, I'm not going to capture that the same way that if I had a tele or whatever. But I just stare at it like that's a good picture, right?
Yep.
And that moment when you go like, that's a good picture, that's a good moment, you are completely there in that. Nothing else matters, right? I think cell phones are great, but how many pictures can you take? It's like, it's different, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah. Well, they say that the best camera to use is the one that's in your hand. So don't ever be afraid to use that cell phone to zoom in on that albatross and take a picture.
Yeah. True. I did take a picture, by the way, but it didn't come as well. Phil, this was amazing. Thank you, my friend. I love staying in touch with you. I've always considered you someone that I can, pick up the phone and throw an idea and get an advice from you. And I value that a lot. And you've been always someone that motivated me to do so, right? You even when I'm hesitating, you will say like, "Hey, buddy, what's up?" Right? So I appreciate that. I appreciate you being here. And hopefully we get to do this sometime again in the future.
It was fantastic to spend time with you. I really enjoyed it. I enjoy our conversations. Have a great week, Mateo, and do stay in touch.